All right.
Okay, it's 7 o'clock on the dot, so we'll go ahead and get started. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Peoria Proud's Inquiry Teach-In webinar. I'm Reverend Russell, my pronouns are he, him, and I'll be your host for the evening. This ongoing series serves as a way to bring knowledgeable professionals to a wide audience on a host of different subjects concerning the LGBTQ plus community, and will be recorded for posterity. After the presentation, we'll open it up for Q&A. Tonight's topic is a part 2 to our last webinar. So 2 weeks ago, Carolyn walked us through the process of filing for a legal name change. And tonight they're back to help us understand the next steps once your name and gender have been legally changed in the court. So I'd like to start by providing some background on your presenter tonight. Carolyn Walskog, LCSW, whose pronouns are she, they, is the Director of Operations and Programming at Youth Outlook, a youth services agency that works to meet the ever-evolving needs of LGBTQ plus youth and their families in Northern Illinois. Additionally, Carolyn is the coordinator of Transformative Justice Law Project's Name Change Mobilization, serving trans folk across Illinois. She serves as an adjunct professor at Jane Addams College of Social Work at University of Illinois at Chicago. Carolyn works with educators, mental health professionals, and other youth workers to create safe, supportive, and affirming policies and practices for working with queer and trans young people and their families. Thank you, Carolyn, for joining us this evening. So I'm now going to hand over the spotlight and allow Carolyn to share their knowledge with us. During this time, please refrain from asking any questions. After the presentation, we'll open it up for a Q&A. Carolyn, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, River, and thank you, Peoria Proud, for inviting me back. I will say that if you do have questions on a certain slide, you can add them to the chat, and then River will read them to me afterward. So welcome back to part 2. If you missed part 1, we covered filing for a legal name change in the state of Illinois. And so if you're interested in that, that is posted on the Peoria Proud Facebook page, and then it will be up on their YouTube page as well. And this will get posted there too. So you'll see that we're talking about this March 25th, 2025. And so if you're seeing this, several years into the future, like, hello, we hope that the future is treating us well. But just know that this topic changes often. So it's always good to double check your sources when thinking about name and gender marker changes, because there's, kind of an ever evolving landscape when it comes to this kind of thing. So this is what's happening for us here in March of 2025. So again, I'm Carolyn. I use she and they pronouns, and I'm kind of coming to you in the capacity of a name change coordinator at TJLP. TJLP has been providing name and gender marker change services to trans people across Illinois since the mid-2000s, and we've changed over 4,000 people's names. So again, if you are interested in getting support to have your name change, please visit tjlp.org, and we have an intake form there for support. Where we're picking up tonight is thinking about, okay, I've either changed my name already and I want to change my gender marker, or maybe you really like your name that you have, or you're not ready to do a name change, but you want to think about updating your gender marker. So we're going to kind of cover all of that. So let's say that we have gotten our name change. We have a certified name change order. What do we do with that information? We're going to get started. So I'm sharing my my presentation in Canva, not in full presenter mode. So you'll see I have a lot of tabs open that we're going to visit. So when it comes to updating your identity documents, it can feel a little overwhelming of knowing where to start. And a lot of people ask me, where I got my name changed, what do I do first? And I think there's a myth out there that you have to update your birth certificate first, which is not the case. There is no set order or set timeline of when you need to update your gender marker or your name on your documents. I typically think it's easier to go to the DMV to get your ID or your driver's license updated, and or going to the Social Security office first. But it really is up to you, and it kind of depends on your situation. So we have a guide for updating your identity documents that's available on our website. And so I'm going to tab over to that. And we call it What Happens After My Name Change is Granted. And so it says, congratulations on your name change. It's been an honor to support you. And you can use this form even if we didn't work with you. Now that your change is granted, you will need to do a number of things in order to update your personal identification documents. And so you can see this is a pretty long document that has a lot of instruction. So I'm going to talk you through some of this today, but know that if you prefer to learn by reading, this is on our website. So anyway, just want to show that that is a resource. The other resource that I want to show you is from our friends at Advocates for Trans Equality. So the information that I'm going to share tonight really relates to Illinois identification, but you may have been born in a state that isn't Illinois and you want to correct your birth certificate. And we don't have the instructions for every single state on our guide. So I want to show you what's called the Identity Document Center, or ID Document Center, from Advocates for Trans Equality. And this is transequality.org /documents. So you can scroll down on here and you can check your state. So let's say that I was born in Hawaii. I can open this up and this will tell me the name change laws, but I live here, I don't need that. We'll scroll down and the birth certificate laws, and that will tell you what is needed for your state. So for example, in Hawaii, they will amend the sex on a birth certificate upon receipt of an affidavit from a U.S. licensed physician stating that the applicant has had appropriate clinical treatment for gender transition. So if you were born in Hawaii, it looks like you don't have to have a court order for name change. You just have to show that you've taken steps to transition. And then they're going to have the link for what your documents will look like and then where to send them into. As I started, and I shared that things are changing all the time. So this website may not always have the most up-to-date information. So it's always good to verify from a second source, like by maybe going to Hawaii's vital records and looking for that. But this is a great website, especially if you were born in like a unique situation, like you have a consular birth certificate. Maybe you were born at a military base abroad. It will tell you how to correct your documents. It also will help give you instructions for correcting some of your federal documents like passport, Social Security, selective service, immigration, and then I mentioned those consular birth certificates. So we've got a couple different resources already that we've shown you is our kind of written out document on how to update everything, this ID Document Center. And I also wanted to share a resource that Trans Lifeline also has grants for helping to pay for the cost of updating your documents. So we know that oftentimes if you are low income, you can get your fees waived through the courts to get your name changed. But then when you have to go update your documents, some of those things have costs, like particularly the passport. You can apply for a grant and what they call a micro grant through Trans Lifeline. And these are open the 1st through the 14th of each month. And they give about 32 grants per month. So it's pretty competitive, but they provide funding for like not only the name change process, but also updating some of your documents. So as we talk today and you're thinking about how am I going to be able to afford this, please know that those resources are available. And if you can't cover them in other ways, feel free to reach out to us. So these are some different resources. Again, checking out TJLP's guide, which is linked on our website, Advocates for Trans Equality's ID Document Center, and then the micro grants from Trans Lifeline. All right, so getting into talking about gender marker changes. Deciding on changing your gender marker is really an individual decision made by you and your family. So whether you're changing your gender marker for yourself or maybe your child, it really depends on what feels best for you. Some people really want to have as many things as possible match their affirmed gender. Other people may be more concerned about changing their gender marker because they're afraid of, if I change my gender marker with my insurance and say I'm a person with a uterus and then I get, some type of cancer or something involving my uterus and my gender marker is male, will my insurance not cover that, right? So those are like questions and fears that people may have. So what we tell people is like there's no one right way. You can make those decisions. We know that we have protections for our healthcare here in Illinois, and we don't discriminate against people on the basis of sex when it comes to healthcare. So some people may say, I'm going to go forth and update that. Other people are not sure if they want to. What we know is that most insurance companies only allow an M or an F for gender marker. So you may be able to get all of your documents updated in your correct gender, but that might be one that doesn't match what you're interested in. So right now, in this present administration that we're in March 2025, you can update your gender marker on your Illinois birth certificate, on your Illinois state ID and driver's license, and you can have a real ID with the correct gender on it. You cannot update your gender marker on your US passport and within the Social Security system. So prior to this administration, we were able to make those changes to passports and Social Security. And as many of you have heard, that has changed. There is different litigation happening about those changes that have happened since January, but we're waiting on the outcome for those right now. So at this current moment, you're not able to get every piece of all of your genders to, markers to match, but you can at least have 2 documents if you were born in Illinois, have your correct gender marker, which is male, female, or you can have an X designation if you want to. So let's talk about each different document. So we'll start with driver's license, state ID, and real ID. So when I'm talking about these things, they're about Illinois options. If you live in a different state, you have to kind of go by what their state rules are. So you have your name change order. We'll talk about this scenario as if you want to change your name and gender marker. So you had your court hearing, you have your name change order, and you now want to update your gender and your name on your driver's license. What you'll do is you'll go to a DMV in Illinois. Some DMVs require appointments and some are walk-in. Right now, because the Real ID Act is going into effect in May, the DMVs are very busy. So you may need to make an appointment. And most DMVs release their appointments around 6:30 a.m. So if you know you want to go that day, you typically want to get up pretty early and try and get your appointment. I know that in Chicago, they've added an additional DMV downtown. So that has kind of helped with some of the flow. But, to be safe, you may want to make an appointment and not count on just being able to walk in. So you're going to go to your DMV appointment and you're going to bring your certified court order if you're updating your name. And then our Illinois DMV will allow you to correct your gender marker to have an M, an F, or an X. And they do that using what's called a gender designation form that you fill out yourself. So I'm going to pull that up. This is what our form looks like here in Illinois. So it's called a gender designation change form. I usually recommend printing 2 copies and bringing this with you. Now, the DMV should have copies of it, but I recommend bringing them with you just in case the person isn't as familiar. And you're going to fill this out with whatever name the DMV has for you currently. So it's going to have your old name typically if you're changing your name. And then you're going to check if you want your designation to be an M, an F, or an X. And then I usually wait to sign this until I'm in front of the person from the DMV so they can watch me sign. So this is all that is needed, no matter how old you are. So if you're 16, you sign it for yourself. You don't have to have your parents sign it for you, and they will change your gender marker. You can go to the DMV today or tomorrow, right, and just change your gender marker using this form. You don't have to change your gender marker and name at the same time. Or maybe you did your name change a while ago and never updated your gender. You can go and do that. So this is the form that's needed. The cost to correct an ID kind of depends. So correcting a driver's license is $5. I think correcting a permit is $5, but I'm not positive. And correcting a state ID is $10. Um, so if you have a state ID and a driver's license, if you have both documents, some of us do, you should correct both of those because sometimes people run into issues when they have two different kind of names assigned. Um, so, like if you had both, update both while you're there. It saves you $1 if you pay with cash. Otherwise, they'll charge you $1 to use your credit card. Talking about real IDs, real IDs are like that license that has kind of a star on it, and you're allowed to fly with those. So starting in May of 2025, if you want to get on a domestic flight, you either have to show your passport or you have to show that you have a real ID. So if you have no plans to fly anytime soon, you don't need to get your real ID by May. But if you plan to fly and you don't have a passport, you need to have a real ID to get on the airplane starting in May. So right now we can get an M, an F, or an X on our real IDs the same way as a driver's license and state ID. I mean, I don't know if Congress will change that, but as of now, they haven't made any restrictions about the X designation. So you have to decide for yourself what makes sense. What do you feel most safe with having your gender designation? We know that passports are no longer being issued with an X gender marker. And so some people are, nervous about having an X gender marker. And it's really up to you of what you feel most safe, right? We think of identity documents as things that we have to show, police officers, bouncers, people who are like looking at our IDs, right? So does it feel better to you to have your gender marker match who you know yourself to be? Or is there a gender that makes you feel most safe to have that presented? Having an X gender marker, in some ways you do out yourself to the world. So we don't tell people like either way you should or shouldn't get an X marker. If that feels good to you, go ahead. And it's okay if you'd rather have an M or an F for safety. So that's about driver's licenses. I'm going to pause and then I'm going to move on to birth certificates. So you've updated your license, or maybe you haven't. If you want to correct your birth certificate, you have to go through the state where you were born. So I'm going to give you the instructions for Illinois, but if you weren't born here, you can't correct your gender marker here. So in our last talk, when we talked about name changes, we talked about getting a court order to change your gender marker on your birth certificate. Illinois does not require a court order to change the gender on your birth certificate, but some states do, like Wisconsin, like Missouri. So if you had already gotten a court order to change your birth certificate because your state requires it, your state will want you to show that to them. For us here, we have what's called gender self-designation, similar to how we have at our DMV, and we do not have to have a court order. If you live in Illinois but you were born in Missouri and got a court order to change your gender, you can't send that to Illinois and have them issue you an Illinois birth certificate. Illinois, our courts can't do that. They can only you can only bring that court order back to your state where you were born. You have to correct in the state where you were born. So sorry if I said that a bunch of times, but so say you want to correct your name and your gender marker on your birth certificate, you can do that on one correction form, or you can do them separately. Sometimes people say, I just want to update my name. I'll do that later. Or maybe I changed my name and updated it years ago and I never did my gender. You can do them separate or you can do them together. So this is what our form looks like. So it's called an affidavit of correction and it comes with instructions. So you should use black pen. You should not cross anything out. So if you make a mistake, print a new copy. When they talk about your legal name, that is typically the name used at the time of birth, and what you want corrected should include the different items. So on here, I'm going to come back to this. It tells you where you're going to send all this information, but we'll revisit it. This is our form. So correcting a birth certificate in Illinois, you will likely check this box, your birth name, and then your current legal name. So I have done it both ways, where I've put the name that's on the birth certificate, or if I've already had my name changed, I'll put my full new name, and I'm going to write self. If filling this out for my minor child, I'm going to, as the parent, write my name and then write like parent, mom, dad, whatever. So your minor should put their information on top. And then I'm going to put name currently on birth record. This is going to be my full name that's on my birth record. And then place of birth. So I'm going to put the hospital, the city, and the county where I was born. And then my date of birth. And note, like, some hospitals don't exist anymore. They've changed names. So you can put the name of it like when you were born there. And then you're going to list your parents' names as they were listed on your birth certificate. And for most people who have a mother, their name is going to be their maiden name. So even if they had gotten married and changed their name at the time of birth, it's going to be their maiden name that's going to be put on there. And a lot of times people who get these sent back, it's that they have their mom's name incorrect. So look at your birth certificate if you have a copy of it and fill that out as accurate as possible. So then the second section right here where it says second, this is what you're telling them what you want to correct. So if I'm correcting my legal name, I'm going to write in here legal name, and then I'm going to write my old name, like pretend that's my middle, I guess I could write it like this, first, middle, and last. And then what my new name is, first, middle, and last. If you have a junior or a third or whatever, you're going to put those. And then I want to change my gender marker. You can write legal sex. You can write gender marker, whatever works for you. And then you'll list what you want it to be and what how it should read. So you can get an M, an F, or an X on there. And then you are going to fill out your street address. And you're going to wait to sign it until you're in front of a notary. So a notary has to witness you sign this, and they'll stamp it right here. So wait to sign it until you're in front of a notary. They will complete this information, and then this form, this correction form, gets mailed to Springfield. So we have this correction form, but what else do we send in? So in Illinois, all name changes, in Illinois, all birth certificates are corrected in Springfield. So you don't bring this to the county where you were born. You're going to bring it to, you're going to mail it to Springfield. So this is the address that you are going to send it to. So it's Illinois Department of Public Health, Division of Vital Records, 925 East Ridgely Avenue in Springfield, 62702. So what are you going to include in your envelope? I tell people that you're usually including 4 things if you're changing your name and gender. So you're going to put a copy of the affidavit below that we just filled out. You're going to put a $15 check or money order made out to IDPH. You're going to take a photocopy of your photo ID. And so if I'm the parent requesting on behalf of my child, I'll put a picture of my ID. If I'm over 18, I'm going to put my ID. And then if you're changing your name, you're going to send in a certified copy of your court order of name change. You don't have to send anything to prove your gender marker. Then you're going to put all of that into one file, into one envelope, and you're going to mail that to Springfield. You don't have to include a copy of your previous birth certificate. And the other thing to note is, this is on kind of the website, If you make the checkout for $17, they'll send you 2 certified copies, and you add $2. So if I want 3 certified birth certificates that come back, I'll make the checkout to $19, and that could be a check or a money order. They will not send you back your certified court order of name change. That's why we say get multiple copies, because they don't send that back to you. So that's how we correct our birth certificates. It was taking up to 5 months to get an Illinois birth certificate corrected. They have since worked overtime, and we've seen some come back within about a month. So we're hopeful that you will get your birth certificate corrected in about a month, 2 months time. If it's taking longer than that, please reach out and let us know. All right, so we've talked about IDs, driver's license, birth certificates. Let's talk about Social Security. So as I mentioned earlier, Social Security cards, they don't print our gender markers on them, but Social Security knows what your gender is. Prior to this administration, we were able to change the gender marker on Social Security, and that went away in early February. But you can still update your name with Social Security. When you update your Social Security card, that does not change your Social Security number. So your Social Security number stays the same, but you can update your name. And the Social Security office is very used to people changing their name. You know, people get married and update their last name. So it is a constant place of name change. So you're not the only one that's going to be there. But the same thing with DMV is that some offices require an appointment and some are walk-in. So, you know, plan ahead, and often you may need to make an appointment. And you're going to bring your certified court order of name change with you. And you're also going to bring some form of identification. So your driver's license or your passport. If you are changing your child's name, you're going to want something that shows like proof of life. So they might be with you and you have their birth certificate. If they're not with you, you need more than just their birth certificate, but you might need like their school records or immunization records, something that shows proof of life that they're still here. So you're going to go to your Social Security office, and then there's a form that you'll fill out. You can print it out and fill it out ahead of time. I usually just fill it out when I get there because there's usually a wait and they have copies. But this is what the application looks like. And it's called Application for a Social Security Card. So even though you have your old one, you're going to fill this out and you're going to complete it in what your new name is. So the name, it says name to be shown on card, and you're going to put your full new name that you just changed it to. Usually, or it used to be that we could just check the box for what your gender is, but that's not available anymore. You may not know your parents' social security numbers, and you're allowed to leave those blank if you don't know. So you fill out this page, and there's a lot of other pages to the packet that they have, but this is what you fill out, and you wait for them to call you up. And then they will call you up, and you'll say that you're there to correct your name on your social security card. They will correct it within the system, and it's usually takes effect within 48 hours, and they'll mail you a new card, which takes about 10 days. It does not cost anything to update your social security card. So we've got about $5 to $10 for the DMV, $15 for the birth certificate, and this is free for Social Security. Now with passport, we mentioned that the State Department has blocked people from getting an X gender marker on their passport and is no longer allowing people to change the gender marker on their passport. So if you've changed your gender marker already on your passport, it's still valid, but when you go to renew your passport, they'll likely revert it back to your sex assigned at birth. We have not had any instances yet of people reporting getting their corrected passport like confiscated at the border. But people are scared right now, right? So right now, if you change your name, you can only update your name on your passport you can't update your gender marker. There's many circumstances to consider, and Lambda Legal actually did a workshop on passport changes, so I wanted to show you their website. And this website is lambdalegal.org/TGNC-checklist-under-Trump. And it's called Identity Documents for Trans, Non-Binary, Gender Nonconforming, and Intersex People. And if you scroll down, you can see on February 26th, they did a Know Your Rights on passports. So if you really want a deeper dive into that, you can watch this YouTube clip, and there's more information of things to know. So when you want to correct your name, what you'll do is search the passport, say like correcting name on passport, search that on our website, on our State Department website, and it will give you the forms that you need. It's hard to give you instructions of how to do that because it really depends on how old you are, how long you've had your passport, those kinds of things. But know that you can change your name on your passport. If you've been issued your passport within the last year, oftentimes you don't have to pay to change it again. And, just know that if you've already changed your gender marker on your passport, they will revert it back when you go to update your name. So that might be for you. It may feel like I just want to wait and update my passport later just so that I can have the correct gender. So those are some options that you can do, that you can have. There is a lawsuit, like I mentioned, that is pending, trying to challenge this rule. So some people, you might want to wait to apply to correct it until we kind of get an outcome from that. So it's tough. What I tell people is whatever your name and gender marker is on your passport, that's what you should book your flight in so that you don't run into any issues like at customs. So you can still update your picture to be the one that matches what you look like now. But if you can't update your gender marker, list whatever gender markers on your passport on your flight so that your flight plus your passport match. All right. So those are the main ones, right, that we think about when updating, but there's a lot of other documents that you might need to change after a name change or that you want to change your gender marker on. So one of them might be our health insurance. And this is another one where I don't have like one set guide on how to update your name on your insurance because it really depends on your plan. Now, sometimes you can just, like if say you have Blue Cross Blue Shield, you can turn your card over and look for the 1-800 number and call them. And sometimes they will let you fax in your insurance or your name change order and they'll update it. Some want you to go through your employer. So if your employer gives you your health care, you may have to talk to your HR person and show them that you had a name change and update it through them. So those are some things that you might want to update and then think about, okay, I've updated with my insurance. I want to tell my doctor's office that my name is legally changed. I want to tell my pharmacy. I list vaccine cards. We don't really have to show our vaccine cards like we used to, but that was one of the things that people wanted to ask. And then you may want to update your school records. So thinking about, what is your highest level of degree? Is it your high school diploma? Is it did you graduate from college? You may want to contact those schools and ask them to issue you an updated, like to change your name in their system so that you can get updated transcripts in your proper name. Not all schools will do it. And I've found that some of them, it's not because they're being transphobic. It's just that their systems are old or they archive and don't allow for any changes. So if you got to know, I still, recommend trying to escalate it to see. But even some schools, they've really had a good heart, but they weren't able to make those changes. So something to think about if you want to update. For us here in Illinois, if you have Medicaid, there is a form that I have pulled up. And so I always forget the name of this form, so I Google like Illinois Medicaid name change form, and this is what they have you fill out for the Illinois Department of Human Services. And so you write your case name and your case identification number. And then, so again, if you have Medicaid, you'll list what your name was and what it is now. And then reason, I usually write I had a legal name change. And then they don't have a gender marker change form right now. So I usually just write in on here, please also change my gender marker to male or something like that. And then you can drop this off at your local DHS office. So most DHS offices, that's where you go for like food stamps, right? For TANF, that kind of stuff. You will they have like a box, that a drop box that you can drop this off in. So you'll include a copy of your order plus this, and then they'll update your Medicaid, your name with Medicaid, and then they'll contact if you have like a Medicaid provider. So around me, a lot of people use Blue Cross Community or Meridian for their Medicaid. So I'm not going to contact Blue Cross Community or my Meridian Medicaid. I have to do it through DHS first by filling out this form, and then it slowly makes its way. It's not a super fast process, but those are some things that you can do. Or you can wait till your next redetermination when you go in and meet with your provider, or maybe you do that over the phone and you can tell them you had a name change and ask them how they want you to submit it. All right. So the last thing I'll show you is just our TJLP website. So tjlp.org. If you go up to the top under services, name change mobilization, this tells you a lot about our name change process. And you can click here. And there's our intake form. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, a lot of stuff is going to come up, or it won't because we're on. Okay, there we go. It's going to explain kind of the process. And then that is where you'll find the what happens after my name change is granted form. This purple box here, or surrounded by purple, you'll click here. That'll bring you to that Google document that I showed you earlier. All right, so those are the main things. I think we're now at the Q&A portion of this workshop. So I guess, River, are there any questions that came in or anything that I could clarify?
I don't see any questions in the chat. If anyone wants to submit questions, go ahead and drop them in the comments. If not, I do already have a few questions prepared of my own.
Sure.
So what happens if you don't update your identity documents after a legal name change?
Nothing really happens if you don't update them. So if you don't tell anybody that you had your name changed, nobody knows. It just stays in a court file. So there isn't really anything specific that happens if you don't.
Okay, so there's no real change that gets flowed through anywhere. It's just
and
the courts see it, but nowhere else.
Yeah, and the systems don't communicate with each other. So if you update your name at the DMV, Social Security doesn't know that. Like you have to go tell them that. So I think that so you want to like kind of start going through those different places to update your name, but remember that they don't talk to each other. I also get questions sometimes like I got my name changed, say like March 1st, but I have to travel on March 10th. You can wait till you get home to update your stuff so you're not like stuck with IDs that are like that. I don't want to travel with a paper copy or something like so you don't have your flight isn't going to know you got your name changed unless you correct your flight. And oftentimes they charge you to correct your name on your flight. So I might say travel under your old name and start updating stuff when you get back.
Okay. There is one comment that came through. It says, I missed the first part of this live stream. Is there a place to rewatch? Yes. After this is over, it's immediately saved to Facebook. So you can rewatch this on Facebook. We're also going to edit it and clean it up and get it posted to Peoria Proud's YouTube channel at a later date. Now, in regards of reading the slides afterwards, we haven't actually talked about that. Carolyn, is there a way that we should share these slides with the community?
I would tell folks I'm going to put my email up. So my email right there is carolyn@tjlp.org. So I think if you want the slides sent to you as a PDF, I think that'd be the best way to contact. Just email me and I'll send them to you.
Okay. Thanks for addressing that. So you had already kind of gone over how someone can update their diploma. If I'm an accountant and I'm currently working towards my CMA license, but let's say I got it before I changed my name. If I wanted to retroactively change that certificate, would that simply be reaching out to that agency, trying to file a name change with them?
Yeah. So, and I should have pulled that up. When most of us were licensed through what's called IDFPR, is that where your license comes through, like the Illinois
Yes, it
Department
is.
of something, whatever that stands for? So IDFPR has a name change, um, portal, like, or instructions for that. So if you search name change IDFPR, that should show up, and they'll tell you how to update your name. And so again, sometimes you do that at the time of when your license expires. I know I'm a social worker, we have to do that every 2 years, and so, or you can do it kind of in the middle by searching that.
Okay. Another question I had, can you update your name on your voter registration right away? And how long does that take to go into effect? Like if I were to update that and voting is a week away,
Yeah,
what
great
should
question.
I tell them?
Great question. So, well, and yeah, April 1st, we vote. So make sure if you're going to be on vacation or spring break that you're vote early. But there's a couple different ways that you can update your voter registration. So when you go to the DMV to update your name, they have a box that you can check to update your voter registration. And so that's like the easiest way to do that. But you can also, where we live in Illinois, we have like same day voter registration. So you can go to your polling place and re-register under your new name while you're there. I think online registration for this election is over, but don't quote me on that. So it may not go into effect if you try to update it online now. So if you want to vote in your new name, you could show them your name change order at your polling place, or after the election, you can update it online again for the next election.
Okay. Do you have any advice on what someone should do if a company or institution refuses to update your name on their records?
So we don't run into that too often because people typically take the court order. So I think if that happened to me, I would always ask for something in writing, right? Like, can you clarify that you're not doing this and tell me why? And then depending on what the facility is or the organization, there may be different routes to go. But typically people don't want to put something in writing, if they're not gonna do it. So then they may, or asking to speak to a supervisor, I think, to help get some clarity. But again, I always say, like, people change their names all the time, right? That's not just trans people. So a lot of organizations are used to people updating stuff. But yeah, if someone refuses to, I would ask for the reason why, get it in writing. And then, in some cases, we may want to talk to the ACLU, um, or you may want to like have a lawyer look over the thing, and send a letter. But I think, yeah, it kind of depends on who's telling you no.
Okay. All the other questions that I had prepared, I think you had already answered.
Great. Great.
I don't really have anything else. I'm not seeing anything else pop up in the chat. So I guess with that, we can go ahead and wrap things up,
Great. So,
unless there's any closing notes you wanted to share.
well, I'll just share that we're always available to answer questions on our TJLP email, which is namechange@tjlp.org. I have my email there listed, and then my colleague Avi Rudnick, who's our staff attorney and legal director, his email is avi@tjlp.org. So we're happy to answer questions, and I want to remind you, as we did in the last session, that you don't have to do this alone. Like, we're so excited to celebrate you and be there with you to get your name changed. So if you're interested in support, or maybe you've already started and need someone to make sure you're on the right track, please feel free to reach out to us.
Yes, absolutely. I can vouch for TJLP. They helped me with my name change process. That's why they're here. Carolyn, I want to thank you again so much for putting together this week and the presentation 2 weeks ago. These are so helpful. The work you're doing is really making an impact on our community. So thank you so much for all of this.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. Everyone have a good night.